Get started. Y'all ready? Okay, everybody ready? Let's get started. Who are we missing? I'm here. I'm talking. Face this way. Are we missing anybody that we should wait for? Or are all the important people here? Okay. While I'm getting started here, Israel has been drafted to go around the room and show everybody to what we referred to as when we were kids in school as visual aids that we're going to be talking to today. Where is Israel? Israel.
Set them to pass around.
Okay, we're going to repeat a few things that we've covered every time for the last few years, just by way of review. So, the first thing we want to talk about is a term called property. What's property? Who can tell me what property is? Or what's your definition of property? Hope.
A tangible object that can be owned by a person.
Well, why did you say tangible?
Well, because things that aren't tangible, I would say aren't property. Like words aren't property.
Well, yes, they are because they can be copyrighted, and also like rights of property, right? Like they belong to me.
Intellectual property.
Liberty's been going to law school and through all her homeschooling years. That was a good explanation. Words can be property. Intangible things can be property. When we're born, we get a bank account. And in that bank account is the most important kind of property you will ever have. And it's an intangible. You can't touch it, taste it, feel it, smell it, hold it, but it's yours. And nobody knows the balance on that account except your creator. And this form of property in your account disappears minute by minute. What do you think that property is? What disappears minute by minute? Yes. Your life? Well, somebody said it. Time. Time is the most important form of property we own. Time is intangible personal property because we can't observe it with the senses, but does it have value? Anybody here do lawn maintenance for, to make money? Mowing, you mow? Okay. How much do you charge to mow a lawn? 20 bucks? Okay. And how long would it take you typically to mow an average size yard? An hour. And when you finish mowing and that hour is spent, can you get it back? But the people that you mowed the lawn for, did they give you something in return for that hour that you took to mow the lawn? Yes? So you exchanged your hour for some money, correct? Now, that exchange that we have, that's a financial transaction. You gave an hour of your time, you got 20 bucks, Were you happy with that trade? Do you think the people that gave you the $20 were happy to have their lawn mowed? Do you think they were happy with that trade? Okay. That exchange or that transaction where you're trading your time for something tangible is something you're going to be doing for the rest of your life. Now, it's what we do with that time that's the most important consideration, because we have lots of time, and if we waste it, when we get to a certain point in life and we need to have that time in some form that's tangible by collecting assets of some sort, if we wasted it, we're going to have nothing to show for it. We're not going to have any reserve on hand to maybe pay for food when we otherwise can't afford it. We get sick or injured. Okay. Wealth. Anybody tell me what wealth is? What's wealth? Abundance of something? How about all of the things that you have access to? Can a family be part of your wealth? Sure, probably a pretty important part. Money can be wealth, right? Anybody disagree that money is wealth? What's the most important form of wealth that we try to maintain or try to collect over the years? Anybody? Wisdom? Can be part of your wealth. That's a resource. Knowledge. You can take knowledge and use your time to turn that into something tangible. Okay. Money, property, time, wealth. Those are all considerations. But we're going to talk today about money, because money is probably the most common thing that people turn their time into. Anybody ever seen this expression, money makes the world? Can anybody finish that? Can anybody finish that? Can we go around? Okay, let's go around. It's probably the place that I saw that, 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 the place that I saw. That was one of the songs, was about money. Okay, so we're going to talk about money. Okay. Now we use money, and we probably all have some at least mental image of what the kind of money that we use is. But what if squirrels used money? What kind of money do you think squirrels would use? What kind of tangible thing would they want to? Nuts? Acorns. Okay. This is a tangible thing. Squirrels have time, right? And if the squirrel doesn't spend its time collecting acorns and storing them away for winter, what's going to happen come winter? Now, where would be the best place for a squirrel to store its money? The ground? How about that? No, squirrels don't have refrigerators, but if they did, that'd be a good place to keep it, wouldn't it? Okay, where would they really keep it? Hollow tree? That'd be pretty common, right? Why is that a bad idea? For a squirrel to keep its acorns, which is all its wealth that it's collected over the whole summer and fall, in a hollow tree, yes?
Because it makes it easy for other animals to get to it.
Good point, yes?
Could burn down.
Could burn down, right? Then it'd be wasted, be totally worthless, yes?
If anything finds it, that's all it's deserved.
Yeah, anything. Anything like one of these guys that also love acorns, and anything they can find in your garbage can. So what would the squirrel do if he lost all his acorns because he was imprudent in where he hid them? Come wintertime, he has no acorns left. He would starve, right? Okay, now what about people? What if we could use food for money? Let's say apples. We're going to use apples as our form of money. It's tangible. We've either had an orchard or we've used our time to collect lots of apples. And let's assume that apples have value to everybody. Everybody wants apples, so we can buy anything we need with apples because that's our form of money. How would we store it? Would this be a prudent way to store it?
No.
Why not?
They bruise.
Bruise, right? Worms and bugs, okay? So when the worms and bugs or the raccoons or the rot or whatever else gets to our money, we get rotten money, what happens to this apple? Is anybody going to give me anything for this apple anymore? So this apple, if it's my money, it has no more purchasing power. Nobody's going to give me anything for a rotten apple. So what would be a better way to store it? How about this? That'd be smart. Okay? This is what we get when we take care of our money. That's the result. Okay, so the dollar. This is probably the most recognizable form of money that we have. The dollar is the constitutional guarantee of the value of our money and wealth. The constitutional guarantee of the value of our money is to protect the purchasing power. It's like the dollar, and we're going to go through what that actually is and the law that's involved and why that's important. The dollar is a refrigerator for our money. In a way, it protects the purchasing power. So here's a few questions. What is a dollar? Is Israel back?
Silver round.
Okay. Could you holler for me, Hari? Well, he's got a job. I need the exhibits back. Okay, we're going to go through these one at a time. Oh, Hope has it. Oh, you have one. Okay. Where's the other one? Oh, okay. Well, he didn't do that as like I had planned, but anyway. All right, so pass these around. I'd like them to be together when you do it. So you can look at the two of them at the same time, because I want you to look at the similarities and the differences. I want you to have them in your hand. Okay, we're going to talk about these questions, answer these questions one at a time. Okay, what is a Federal Reserve note? What is significant about the word dollar appearing in the Constitution of the United States of America? What is lawful money? And does the Constitution allow the United States to issue or print paper money? So what is $1? If you've taken this block before, don't answer the question.
Silver round.
A silver round, what does that mean?
Like that big silver coin that's made of mostly silver nowadays.
Mostly silver?
Mostly silver nowadays.
Do you know what else is in there what other kind of metals in there? Copper. Okay. Okay. Is there any other distinguishing characteristics of this thing, the silver round that you're calling a dollar? Yes.
The amount and like the size of the silver and the amount in the one is consistent with everything.
Okay, good. Consistent weight. You abandon us.
Sorry.
It's okay.
Document.
Okay. Yes?
So I was saying, so a dollar is currency. A dollar is one of the forms of money that we see.
Okay.
And it helps us trade.
Okay. A dollar really is a standard unit of measure. So it's analogous to time. There's 24 hours in a day. 7 days equals a week. Weight, 16 ounces equals a pound. 2,000 pounds equals a ton. 1 inch equals 12, times 12 equals a foot, times 3 equals a yard. Do you think we could do business either here in the United States or around the world if we didn't have fixed units of measure? I mean, you can imagine going to the grocery store and say, I want a pound of bananas. And the grocer gives you 6 ounces and says, oh, this is a pound today. Well, are you going to pay for 6 ounces of bananas and let them tell you it's a pound? Is that important to have a fixed unit of measure for anything? Distance. Here's a good example of why distance is important. This is a good constitutional question test. What's the maximum size that Washington, D.C. can ever be? It's a square. There's the hint. Anybody? I'm sorry? 10 square miles. Can never be bigger than that. It's actually a lot smaller than that now because early on they gave a big chunk of it back to Virginia, split by the river. But could Congress say, Well, we're going to change the definition of mile to 10,000 feet instead of 5,000, so double it. Now all of a sudden we have Washington D.C. that's over 20 square miles. Can they do that? Who says yes? Who says Congress can just change the measure? Nobody wants to take a guess.
Relative.
I'm sorry?
Chance is relative.
Chance is relative?
Chance.
Oh, okay. So $1 equals 371 grains of silver, actually fine silver, means it's pure, minted into a coin. That equals $1. Nothing else is $1. So these exhibits that you're passing around the room, one of them is $1, one of them is not. Okay. Sorry? Just hold on to it. So the dollar of the Constitution. Article 1, Section 8, Clause 5, Congress shall have the power to make money, regulate the value thereof, foreign coin, and fix the standard of weights and measure. What's wrong with what I just said?
You said to make money.
Why is that important?
Because if you make money, sometimes too much money will go out into the people.
Okay? It might make too much, yes?
The reason why they said specifically to coin money is because there's a limited amount of silver, and that gives it an intrinsic value, but you can plant as many trees and print as many dollars as you want.
Well, that's kind of relates, but not exactly, but it's on the right track. The reason Congress can't make money is because if they can create something out of nothing, then there's no limit to what they can create. So who knows what's involved with coining money? What do you have to coin money? First thing you have to have a metal, right? And then you have to have a mint to strike it, turn it into a coin. What about paper money? Okay. So we have this provision in the Constitution that Congress can set the standards of weights and measures, right? So that means that if it's a standard weight and measure, Congress has the authority to decide what that weight or measure will equal. But there are some things that they can't change without a constitutional amendment. So if a word appears in the Constitution, like one of the units of measure, mile, year, dollar, Congress can't change that without changing the Constitution, without amending the Constitution. So the term dollar first appears in Article 1, Section 9, Clause 1. A duty or tax may be imposed on such importation not exceeding $10 for each person. So Congress can tax, under this provision, the importation of some kind of person. Does anybody know what that kind of person would be? Who are the persons that someone's going to be taxed $10 for importing? What kind of people were imported from Africa? Slaves. Now, the slave traders, the merchants here, do you think they would have allowed, when this provision was ratified, they would have allowed an uncertain unit of measure to determine what their tax was going to be for importing slaves? Of course not. They knew exactly what $10 was. And $10 today is the same thing that was when slavery was legal in the United States. Article 1, Section 10, Clause 1. No state shall make anything but gold and silver coin a tender in the payment of debts. Does anybody know what this means? Has anybody? Okay, Liberty?
Well, actually, it kind of comes back from the Articles of Confederation, right? Because everyone was kind of making their own money for each state, and a lot of it was just paper, and because of that, there was a lot of inflation. These paper monies, not only could they not buy anything in a different state, but they were worth hardly anything because they were just like making them, right? So what this clause is saying is that we should have a gold and silver standard and use that in payments and debt.
That's pretty close. So what the significance of the term legal tender, and notice it says states can make, only states can make anything but gold or silver coin a tender in payment. So if I owe you a debt and the state of Idaho has determined that gold and silver coins are legal tender, which is a constitutional requirement. And I offer you the money, say I owe you $10, and I offer you 10 silver dollar coins. And you say, I don't want that. I want something else. I want another kind of money. You've just repudiated the debt. You cannot come back and sue me. It's like you just said, I'm forgiving the debt legally. You can't sue me to collect it then, because I've tendered the money to you, the legal tender, and you refused it. Now, Idaho has not adopted a legal tender statute. So, and there really are no states that have yet. I think Utah has kind of. And the last mention of the word dollar, the Seventh Amendment, in suits of common law where the value in controversy shall exceed $20, the right of a trial by jury to be, shall be preserved, and no fact tried by a jury shall be otherwise examined in any court of the United States than according to the rules of common law. So if you're going to sue somebody according to the Constitution, if it's a common law lawsuit, and we won't go into common law because that's another whole block, if the value is more than $20, in a civil suit, you're guaranteed a trial by jury. So here's kind of a chart to show you the relative difference of the coins and the values thereof. So we have 1 troy ounce equals 480 grains, or 31.1034 grams, or 1.09714 ounces. That silver coin that you're passing around is 1 ounce. So this is the way the original system was set up. 1 cent, which is what we refer to as a penny now, was 46.3 grains of copper. The value of 100 of those coins that was set in our original Coinage Act was $1. And that's a fixed standard. So a real cent, a constitutional cent, 100 of them equals a constitutional dollar. Copper's the metal that was used for pennies, and silver is always used for dollars. It always has been. Now, 10 silver dollars, which there's the grains of silver in silver, equals $10 gold coin. So you see we have a fixed metal standard. We can convert the value of copper to silver and silver to gold. And it's always fixed according to these measures. Congress has a responsibility to regulate the value of all minted coins to the pure metal dollar standard. There's a scripture verse that says that diverse weights and measures are an abomination before the Lord. Who knows what that means? If you're a merchant, let's say you're a merchant. You want to go ahead, Israel. You want to try?
I don't know exactly, but I'll take a shot.
Okay.
You know, I think it's saying that we should just have like one go off silver or go off gold, but don't say, all right, we have gold, we have silver, we have copper, we have all these different metals, and they're all going to be our money.
Well, particularly what that verse is talking about is, let's say you're a merchant and you're in your stall at the farmer's market selling fruits and vegetables, and you want to sell a pound of something, but you have 2 measures. You have 1 weight that's a pound, and you have 1 weight that's 6 ounces, like we talked about. And it says a pound on it, but it's really only 6 ounces. And someone comes up to buy a pound of tomatoes from you. Instead of putting the real pound weight up there, you know they're not going to catch it, so you put the 6 ounce weight up there. And the scale balances, so they think that they got a pound of tomatoes. But you know you just made extra money because you only sold them 6 ounces. That's a diverse weight. It's theft. And God doesn't like when we do that. Okay, the dollar is a fixed standard unit of measure that was established in 1497 by King Ferdinand and Queen Isabel of Spain. So at this time in history, every merchant in the world, no matter who they were trading with, would accept these Spanish coins that were called a dollar as payment because everybody knew they were silver. Now, if you look at you can still see on the edges of some of them, you see these little markings here? Those is called fluting. Does anybody know what that's for? Liberty.
Oh, it's because people would shave off bits of the silver around the edges, so that they could basically like cheat, you know, and get like extra silver from it, but then it wasn't worth the same amount. So they would do the, what's it called again?
Fluting.
Fluting, thank you. They would do fluting so that you can't shave off the silver.
Okay, did everybody hear that? It's a security protection. It keeps people from shaving off part of the silver. Because you imagine if you took every silver coin you had and you shaved off just a tiny little fraction of each one with a very sharp knife, and you collected those in a drawer, you could melt those down and make more money, make another coin. So why do we have this 371 grains of fine silver? Anybody heard of the Coinage Act of 1792? It was our first monetary law for the United States, and it's the foundation of our monetary system today. So in 1792, Congress did an assay of all of the silver coins, these silver Spanish coins they could find, and they determined that the average weight of those coins was 371 grains of silver. So that's the standard they developed and is fixed today for that unit of silver. 371 grains. Now, in 1982, there was a report done by the Gold Commission. Anybody here know somebody named Ron Paul? Okay. Ron Paul was on the Gold Commission. He's one of my liberty heroes, Ron Paul. And they've turned out a report. And this is very important, this particular language. In 1784, Thomas Jefferson said, if we determine that a dollar shall be our unit, we must then say with precision what a dollar is. Our founding fathers followed that advice, and in 1792, the dollar was defined as 371 grains of silver. From 1792 until August 15th of 1971, the dollar was defined as a precise weight of either gold or silver. Now this is actually somewhat misleading. 1971, does anybody know what 1971 is significant for with regard to gold and silver? Correct. Well, he didn't take us off the gold standard because we really have always had a silver standard. But President Nixon illegally, but very smartly, stopped allowing the United States to redeem the foreign paper money that countries were holding for gold or silver. That was the last connection between gold or silver in the United States. So from 1971 until 1985, there were no more exchanges of gold and silver coins. We had no lawful money. So this is again from the Gold Commission report. This is a quote that was actually in the report, the letter from the committee. It is significant that this power of coining money is mentioned in the same sentence in the Constitution as the power to fix the standards of weights and measure. For as the framers regarded money as a weight of metal and a measure of value. Roger Sherman, a delegate of the Constitutional Convention, wrote that if what is used as a medium of exchange is fluctuating in value, it is no better than unjust weights and measures, which are condemned by the laws of God or man. That's how important it is that we have a fixed unit of measure. We would have economic chaos if we didn't have a fixed unit of measure for our money. So what's a Federal Reserve note? It's a private bank note, promise from a bank to pay real lawful money. It's redeemable for lawful money on demand. And this law, Title 12, United States Code, Section 411, says that Federal Reserve notes shall be redeemed at the United States Treasury in Washington, D.C. or any Federal Reserve bank for lawful money on demand. And it's not constitutionally authorized money. So did the Constitution authorize Congress to print Federal Reserve notes? So does anybody know where the Federal Reserve notes actually come from? Do you think? Go ahead, Liberty.
Federal Reserve is actually not a part of the government,
Correct.
which is really creepy.
It's a private bank. Right. There's a Federal Reserve Governing Board, which is a quasi-governmental agency, but the Federal Reserve Bank is a private bank. So that's a pretty nice deal. How many of y'all would like Congress to let you start a bank and just take a legal pad and just write $10 and start passing them out and loaning them to people and then have them pay you back with interest on a sheet of note paper? That'd be a pretty nice deal, wouldn't it? Okay, so this section that I referred to in the last slide, section 411, Federal Reserve notes shall be redeemed in lawful money on demand. So if Federal Reserve notes shall be redeemed in lawful money, can they be lawful money? Anybody? So then if they're redeemed for lawful money, what's lawful money? Gold or silver. Period. This is probably the most important disclosure that the federal government makes with regard to the Federal Reserve notes. This is from the United States Department of Treasury's website. You can go and look on their website. It says right at the top, this is an official United States government website. And you can search for legal tender, and you'll see this quote. Federal Reserve notes are not redeemable in gold, silver, or any other commodity, and receive no backing by anything. This has been the case since 1933. The notes have no value for themselves. So that paper note, who has the note? Hold it up. How much value does that note have? Well, why did they take them at the grocery store? Anybody? Why would, when you go to the grocery store and you buy $10 worth of groceries, you hand them 10 of those, why do they accept them? Why do you accept them for someone when they're going to pay you? Where do we give it that value?
Think it has value.
That's right, we think it has value. Okay, the Supreme Court has said and reemphasized many times, but there's a couple of important cases. United States versus Marigold. You see here they've determined that we have to have a uniform and pure metallic standard, not a paper standard. If the medium which the government was authorized to create and establish could immediately be expelled and substituted by one it had neither created, estimated, nor authorized, one possessing no intrinsic value, then the power conferred by the Constitution would be useless, wholly fruitless of every end it was designed to accomplish. What's intrinsic value? What does that mean? Anybody? Yes.
It has value beyond just what someone says it has. Like
Okay.
gold, you can melt it down and use it for different things, and there's a limited amount. So if it runs out at some point, or like a cow has intrinsic value because you can get more cows from it, or eat it, or like get milk from it.
So how can we know that gold and silver have intrinsic value? Liberty.
Because there's only a limited amount of it.
Okay, but we have another way we can know.
It doesn't, what's the word I'm looking for?
We can know from history. We have 3,000 years or more of written history showing that people want to have gold and silver. What's going to change now that would make people say, I don't want gold and silver, I want paper? Intrinsic value changes from person to person. We had two examples. One is the gold and silver, but we also had the cow. Cows have intrinsic value. You can eat them. They can give you milk. They can give you fertilizer. Somebody's probably going to give you something for that cow somewhere if you decide you want to trade it. Same for gold and silver. You will always be able to find someone to give you something for your gold and silver. Okay. Congress knows that our monetary system is in deep trouble. And this is, again, from the Gold Commission. I just want you to look at that last sentence. The present monetary arrangements of the United States are unconstitutional, even anti-constitutional from top to bottom. We have a private bank creating money, which is not authorized by the Constitution, and it's not even gold and silver. There is no legal authority for it. It's unconstitutional, it's unlawful, it's immoral, and it's going to cause economic havoc, if it's not already done that irredeemably, on the United States. So, as we were talking earlier about protecting the value of your money, making sure your acorns are protected so the raccoons don't get it, or your apples are refrigerated so that they maintain their purchasing power. Someone will give you something for them, or you can eat them. What happens when your food rots? That rotten apple we saw? Worthless. What happens to our money when we've created so much money that everybody has all the money they need? It's going to be worthless. What happens to the prices of things then? What's it called?
Hyperinflation.
Hyperinflation or inflation. Okay. Inflation. The short way to, or the short explanation of that is just too much money. So much money that prices go up because everybody's got money. So people that are selling things need more money because the things they need to buy cost more money. So I'm going to show you now a real life example of the effect of inflation and why this is important for us to understand. So this is a real example of a house that was sold in 1957. The data for these slides were the exact value in 2007. So if we updated this a little bit, the actual coinage and dollar numbers would change a little bit. But this is an accurate depiction of what happens with inflation and why this is important. Okay, the house sold in 1957, 1,600 square foot house for $13,500. Well, in 1957, we still had silver dollar coins, so you could buy it for $13,500 in silver coins, $13,500. If you use silver certificates, anybody know what a silver certificate was? Yes?
Isn't it just it's just another note that is a little bit different from a regular money note, and it just meant you can turn it into the bank for that specific amount?
It's a receipt for silver. So when the government printed a silver certificate, somewhere in a vault there was a coin that corresponded to that silver certificate. So instead of carrying 100 coins around, you could carry 100 silver certificates, but you still had the purchasing power of that silver in your pocket. So if you use silver certificates, you would use 13,500 silver certificates. Now, if we were using eggs for our money, you could purchase that house for 37,700 cartons of brown eggs. And we use brown eggs because there's a professor in California who did a study and wrote a report on economics. And he's determined that brown eggs, through the course of time, have fluctuated the least amount in value. So that's why we picked brown eggs. Now, fast forward to 1982, that same 1,600 square foot home. There was no lawful money available. We couldn't use silver dollars, remember, because you couldn't redeem the paper for coins anymore. So if we wanted to use Federal Reserve bank notes, which replace the silver certificates, and what are the Federal Reserve notes backed by? Nothing. That same house would have cost $85,400. How many cartons of brown eggs would it cost? How much do you think they've inflated? $37,700, or cartons of brown eggs. So, did this house change value? Really?
I mean,
Go ahead.
if anything, it would have gone down in value because it's been like, what, 2 decades roughly after that? If anything, it would have aged and there could be more disrepair than back in 1950.
Sure, and that might come into effect when you're figuring somebody's property taxes.
The point is, it shouldn't go up.
Exactly. So it's going. That's what where we're going with this. Is what really happens? Is it going up? Same house sold in 2007. These are from the real estate records in Amarillo, Texas, for this particular house. Now in 2007, because of the Gold Commission and their report, within 6 months of that report coming out, Congress reinstituted gold and silver legal tender coins. So now these Liberty dollars are available, and that's the other coin, the coin that came around to correspond to the Federal Reserve note. That's this coin. You could have bought that, or that sale price for that house, if you'd have paid for it in silver dollars, 13,500 silver dollars. Exactly the same as 1957. 37,700 cartons of brown eggs. How much in Federal Reserve notes do you think it would cost? $175,000. Why is that possible? So here's the buy, sell, here's the final score. If we use brown eggs from buy it in 57 and sell it in 07, we had no gain. No tax due. Tax meaning if you sold that, assuming this wasn't where you lived, it was a rental property, you might be subject to a capital gains tax on it, or at least the perception of one. Lawful money. Buy it in 57 for 13,500 silver dollars, sell it in 2007 for $13,500. No lawful money gain, no tax due. Legal tender. Silver certificate, $13,500. Federal Reserve bank notes, $175,000. Federal Reserve note gain of $161,500. An alleged tax due of $55,000. So think of that if you had to take it out in eggs. How many of your cartons of brown eggs would that take? You'd be upside down, wouldn't you? You'd have to put more money in to buy more brown eggs to pay the tax. After Federal Reserve note tax result in physical carton loss of 11,922 cartons of eggs, or a lawful money property loss of $4,269. So this gain is actually a quiet theft with a perception of a gain. The Federal Reserve Bank, with the authorization of Congress, would have stolen your brown eggs or your money because of the fraud of the Federal Reserve System. I have a stock example, but I'm going to skip that because it's kind of redundant. Okay, just a few other things I want to mention here. 31 USC, the United States Code is our collection of federal laws. So from the beginning of history of the United States, Congress would pass statutes. As we move forward in time, at some point, Congress authorized the Law Revision Council to collect all those statutes and put them in a volume so that they were easy to find. And there's 50 different titles in this collection of books, and each one deals with a separate portion of law. So Title 31 is where the banking and money provisions are. So 31 United States Code 5119A. The Secretary shall maintain the equal purchasing power of each kind of United States currency. Federal Reserve notes are United States currency by statute. Silver dollars are United States currency by statute. They're both legal tender. Has the Secretary fulfilled his duty to maintain the equal purchasing power of those two kinds of money? Why? And what do we do about it? 12 U.S.C. 411, Federal Reserve notes shall be redeemed in lawful money on demand at the Treasury Department of the United States, in the city of Washington, D.C., District of Columbia, or at any Federal Reserve bank. So if you take your Federal Reserve notes and go down to a Federal Reserve note bank, or a Federal Reserve bank, there's one in Dallas, Texas. I went there with my Federal Reserve notes with some clients and said, I want to convert my Federal Reserve notes into lawful money. They wouldn't let us in the building. So have they fulfilled their duty to exchange Federal Reserve notes for lawful money? 31 U.S.C. 5112A 7 through 10E. This might be good for you to go look up, 31 U.S.C. 5112, and you can read through it. This is where all our money is described. Tells the specifications for each kind of coin, what it has to say, what the metallic content has to be. And so just as an exercise for understanding our money supply and what our real money is supposed to be, this is a good place to look. Thompson versus Butler was a case in Texas, was decided in the Fifth Circuit. So the story behind this case, I went to a public high school for my last 2 years of school. This case happened at my school district. A man went into the school district office to pay his property tax, and he tried to pay it with gold coins. The problem is the lady behind the counter told him when he gave her the $50 coins to pay his tax, "Sir, I can take these coins from you, but I can only give you credit for the face value of the coins." And he said, "No, you have to give me the fair market value." She said, "No, it's only the face value. That's what the law says." So Mr. Crummy, who we refer to as Crummy the Dummy, said, "I'm going to sue you," and he did. So this ended up in federal court, and the court said, the ruling of the court was that, or opinion of the court was, a dollar is a dollar. That piece of paper that we passed around that says $1, that's a dollar. That coin that says $1, that's a dollar. That's what our law says. Whether it's a $50 gold coin and a $50 note, or a $1 silver coin and a $1 note, the face value that Congress has determined and authorized to be placed on that item is the value. So Mr. Crummy lost that case. So if you go down to a bank and you take that silver dollar and deposit it, how much money are they going to deposit into your account? How much will your balance increase in your account? Okay, and the same for the paper note, right? So if you're going to hold your money and use it as money, it's better to take the paper money, or to take the gold and silver money as payment and pay out the paper money, especially when you're dealing with the government. Juilliard versus Greenman was this from 1884. Congress has the right to issue redeemable legal tender paper currency. What was our redeemable legal paper tender currency? We saw an example of it. What were those? Silver certificates. Why are those authorized? It's just really a receipt for the silver coin. They didn't create something new. The coin exists, they gave a receipt for it. We carried around the receipts rather than the coins themselves. And the last one is the United States versus Marigold, which is probably the most important one to understand. Constitutionally, coin money is a pure metallic standard of value, a coin with known intrinsic value. We determine the value by the weight of the coin. Okay, that was kind of the express version of the money presentation. And I want to open it up for questions because we're running out of time here. I've gone a little bit over. So anybody have any questions? I covered everything. That was pretty good. None? Israel?
I do have one about the case with Crummy.
Yes.
So you said that was he was the one on behalf of the school, right? Or was he suing?
He sued the school.
So the court decided that it's a face value. So even
Correct.
if your silver dollar is worth, let's say $17 or something, it's still $1, right?
Correct.
But you said that's against the Constitution, right?
It's against the Constitution to have anything but the pure metal standard as money.
Okay.
Now, yes.
How much is 1 trounce of silver worth?
Well, it depends. If it's put in the form of a coin and stamped by the United States Mint as $1, it's worth $1. Now, as far as the melt value, a lot of people refer to the melt value. Today, a silver dollar, the melt value is probably 16 to 17 bucks. American money has we call it a premium. So if you go to an outlet for the mint, there are 14 of them around the country. Actually, I think they're down to 12. And you want to trade some Federal Reserve notes for coins, you'll get them for probably $16 per coin today. Actually, they might have gone up. Gold's been going up. So one of the ways that you can use this to your advantage, and I do this in my own, I'm a lawyer, and so I provide services for clients. I sell my time to a client. and I use what's called gold cost contracts. So when my clients pay me, I require them to pay me in gold and silver coins. So I tell them how much my time I've spent, and they actually determine the value thereof, but then I require them to go take that value and deliver to me the gold or silver coins. So if I have to account for that money to somebody, I just total up the face value of the coins, and that's how much I received. So that's a big advantage. It ties into our tax system, which is another fraudulent system, but we have to save that for another day. Yes?
So, what do you use on a day-to-day basis? And if it's not gold or silver, how do you when and how do you use it?
I have used gold and silver to buy things, and when I get paid for things, I usually demand gold and silver. If I have a written contract, the contract specifies that I'll be paid in gold, U.S. Legal tender coins, so that'd be $1 silver eagles or $5, $10, $25, $50 gold eagle coins. So I use those, but I carry, I have paper notes in my pocket, and I use those. They're a tool. I don't want to accumulate these, so if I'm going to just stick these in a box and bury them in my backyard, it's going to be like the squirrel. My acorns are going to rot, or some animal's going to come carry them off. But if I imagine if you, in 1971, you took 1,000 silver dollars, you put them in a box and buried them in your backyard, and you took 1,000 silver certificates, which now are worth no more than a Federal Reserve note because they're not backed by silver anymore. You buried those in your backyard. What would be the disparity of the coins to the dollars to the paper notes today? The paper money would have $1,000 face value in Federal Reserve notes. The silver would be 17,000 times higher, or it'd be worth 17,000. So you can see why that's the better way to store the value of your money.
So how do you convert? What mechanism do you use to convert?
I would always use, depending on the quantity, there are 12 authorized outlets for the United States Mint, and so I would usually use one of them. Number one, they've been vetted by the Mint, so they're going to be reputable. You're usually going to get the best deal from them because they get so much volume. So they can actually, if you go to the Mint to exchange paper notes for gold or silver coins, you're actually going to pay more than if you use one of the authorized outlets. So I would use one of the authorized outlets. You can also use, there are private businesses that do this. The law says, that was a slide I took out, but the law says you don't have to use Federal Reserve notes. You don't have to use any kind of money. People are free to use whatever kind of money they want. And so if you want to use Federal Reserve notes, you can use Federal Reserve notes. Most of us don't even use Federal Reserve notes. We use we call credit money. How many of y'all have an ATM card? Anybody? No ATM? One ATM card in the whole room? Wow. No time. Okay. Okay. I'm out of time. I'm going to be here till tomorrow. So if you think of any other questions, I'm here to answer them. So thank you.